Years passed, and the rhythm of Liang Chen and Wei Lun's marriage settled into something both steady and profound. Their love had endured hardships, celebrated triumphs, and grown into a bond that felt unshakable. What had once been fragile, tested by exhaustion, family doubts, and career crossroads, was now resilient, a foundation upon which they built not only their lives but their legacy. The cafe had become a cornerstone of the community. What began as a small, struggling shop had blossomed into two thriving locations, each infused with warmth and authenticity. Customers came not only for the pastries but for the story, the lawyer and the baker who had built a life together, who had chosen each other against the odds. Wei Lun embraced this role, not just as a baker but as a mentor. He began teaching classes, guiding young pastry chefs, sharing not only techniques but philosophy, that food was about connection, about presence, about love. Liang Chen, meanwhile, had carved out a new path in his career. He continued his legal work, but focused increasingly on cases that carried human weight, community advocacy, pro bono efforts, legal battles that gave voice to those often unheard. He became a mentor too, guiding younger lawyers, reminding them that success was not just about prestige but about impact. Together, they became pillars in their community, admired not only for their professional achievements, but for the way they lived their lives, with resilience, with authenticity, with love. One evening, as they sat together on the balcony, the city lights shimmering beyond, Wei Lun spoke softly. "Do you ever think about legacy? About what we'll leave behind?" Liang Chen looked at him, his voice thoughtful. "I do. And I think our legacy isn't just the cafe or the cases. It's us. It's the way we've lived, the way we've chosen each other, the way we've built something lasting." Wei Lun smiled, his eyes warm. "That's what I want too. Not just success, but meaning." The conversation lingered, carrying the weight of possibility. They began to dream aloud about the next chapter, perhaps opening a school for pastry arts, perhaps writing a book together, perhaps creating a foundation that combined law and food to support their community. The specifics were uncertain, but the vision was clear. A life built not just on ambition but on joy, on presence, on love. Their families, once hesitant, had become sources of pride. Liang Chen's parents, who had once struggled with his choices, now spoke of him with admiration, proud of the man he had become. Wei Lun's family, supportive from the start, celebrated his success, recognizing the steadiness Liang Chen had brought to their son's world. Together, they built a life that was both ordinary and extraordinary. Ordinary in its routines, coffee, pastries, walks, conversations. Extraordinary in its resilience, its persistence, its love, and though challenges remained, aging, exhaustion, ambition, they knew one thing for certain. They were in this together, step by step, moment by moment, forever. As the years unfolded, Liang Chen and Wei Lun found themselves stepping into roles they had never imagined when they first met. They were no longer just husband and husband, lawyer and baker. They had become mentors, guides, and examples of resilience to those around them. Wei Lun's cafe had become more than a business. It was a gathering place, a hub of creativity and warmth. Young pastry chefs sought him out, eager to learn not only his techniques but his philosophy. He taught them that baking was about more than precision. It was about presence, about creating something that carried emotion, about offering joy in the form of food. One afternoon, after teaching a class, a student approached him shyly. "Chef Wei Lun," she said, "your story inspires me. You didn't give up, even when it was hard. It makes me believe I can keep going too." Wei Lun smiled, his heart full. "Dreams are worth fighting for," he replied gently. "But remember, you don't have to fight alone. Find people who believe in you, and let them walk with you." Meanwhile, Liang Chen's work had shifted toward mentorship as well. Younger lawyers admired his balance, his ability to pursue meaningful cases without losing himself to ambition. He guided them with patience, reminding them that success was not just about prestige but about impact. One evening, after a long day, he told Wei Lun, "I used to think my career was about climbing higher, but now I see it's about lifting others. That's the legacy I want." Wei Lun leaned against him, smiling. And you're doing it. You're showing them that law can be about humanity, not just contracts. Their shared commitment to mentorship became a new bond, a way of extending their love outward into the world. They realized that their marriage was not only about each other, it was about the lives they touched, the examples they set, the resilience they embodied. Travel became another source of renewal. They continued to explore the world together, not with the urgency of youth, but with the appreciation of maturity. Paris remained a favorite, a city that carried memories of dreams and beginnings. Closer to home, they found joy in Taiwan's mountains, rivers, and night markets, rediscovering the beauty of their own land. Each trip became a reminder of time's passage, of the way love deepened through shared experiences. They collected memories like treasures, photographs, journals, pastries inspired by flavors abroad. And each time they returned home, they carried with them not only souvenirs but renewed appreciation for the life they had built together. One evening, as they sat together on the balcony after returning from Paris, Liang Chen spoke softly. Do you ever think about time? How quickly it passes, how much we've already lived. Wei Lun nodded, his voice steady. I do. And I think about how grateful I am for every moment, every challenge, every joy. Time passes, but love endures. The words carried the weight of truth. They realized that their marriage was not about avoiding time's passage. It was about embracing it, about finding meaning in each moment, about choosing each other again and again. Their families, once hesitant, now celebrated them fully. Holidays were filled with warmth, with laughter, with acceptance. Friends admired their resilience, their authenticity, their love. The community saw them not only as lawyer and baker, but as symbols of persistence, of timing, of love. Together, they built a life that was both ordinary and extraordinary. Ordinary in its routines, coffee, pastries, walks, conversations. Extraordinary in its resilience, its persistence, its love. And though time continued to pass, bringing with it aging, exhaustion, and change, they knew one thing for certain. They were in this together, step by step, moment by moment, forever. Time, as it always does, began to leave its mark. The youthful energy that had carried Liang Chen and Wei Lun through their early years together softened into something steadier, slower, but no less profound. Their love had matured, deepened, and taken on new dimensions as they faced the realities of aging. Wei Lun noticed it first in his hands. Once nimble and tireless, they now ached after long hours of kneading dough or decorating pastries. He laughed it off at first, joking that he was finally becoming an old chef, but Liang Chen saw the fatigue behind the humor. One evening, after closing the cafe, Wei Lun sat at the counter, flexing his fingers. They don't move like they used to, he admitted quietly. Liang Chen reached across the table, taking his hand gently. That's because they've done so much. They've built dreams, created joy, carried us through. Wei Lun smiled, his eyes soft. And they'll keep going, just slower. Liang Chen, too, felt the passage of time. His once boundless energy for long hours at the firm had waned. He found himself needing more rest, more balance. The health scare years earlier had already shifted his priorities, but now he felt the weight of age more keenly. He began to think about retirement, not as an end, but as a transition, a chance to devote more time to the life he had built with Wei Lun. Together, they began to prepare for the future. They discussed practicalities, finances, health, the cafe's succession. Wei Lun considered training a protege to take over, someone who could carry forward not just the recipes but the philosophy of love and presence. Liang Chen thought about mentoring younger lawyers more intentionally, leaving behind not just cases but wisdom. One evening, as they sat together on the balcony, Liang Chen spoke softly. Do you ever think about what happens when we can't do this anymore? When the cafe is too much, when law is too much? Wei Lun leaned against him, his voice steady. I do. And I think about how grateful I am that we'll face it together. Whatever comes, we'll choose each other. The reassurance eased Liang Chen's doubts. He realized that aging wasn't about loss. It was about transition, about finding new rhythms, about cherishing the present while preparing for the future. They began to embrace slower joys. Morning walks became longer, filled with conversation and quiet observation. Evenings were spent reading, cooking, reminiscing. Travel continued, but at a gentler pace. Shorter trips, more time spent savoring rather than rushing. Their families, too, began to age. Parents grew frilier, siblings took on new responsibilities, nieces and nephews grew into adulthood. Liang Chen and Wei Lun found themselves stepping into roles of caretakers, offering support, guidance, presence. They realized that legacy was not only about careers or cafes, it was about family, about community, about love extended outward. One afternoon, after visiting Liang Chen's parents, Wei Lun spoke softly. "It's strange, isn't it? Watching them grow older, knowing we're following the same path." Liang Chen nodded, his voice quiet. "It is. But it makes me grateful for the time we have, for the love we share." The words carried the weight of truth. They realized that aging was not something to fear, it was something to embrace, a reminder of the fragility and beauty of time. Together, they built a life that was both ordinary and extraordinary. Ordinary in its routines, coffee, pastries, walks, conversations. Extraordinary in its resilience, its persistence, its love. And though aging continued, bringing with it aches, exhaustion, and change, they knew one thing for certain. They were in this together, step by step, moment by moment, forever. The years continued their quiet march, and with them came the inevitable signs of age. Liang Chen's hair had begun to silver at the temples, and Wei Lun's hands bore the faint tremors of time. Yet neither saw these changes as losses. They were reminders of the journey they had walked together, of the resilience that had carried them through. They embraced aging with grace, finding joy in slower rhythms. Morning walks became gentler, filled with conversation and observation. Evenings were spent reminiscing, reading, or cooking together. Travel continued, but at a pace that allowed them to savor rather than rush. They discovered that love in later years was not about intensity, it was about presence, about cherishing each moment as it came. Mentorship became their legacy. Wei Lun trained a new generation of pastry chefs, passing on not only recipes but philosophy. He taught them that baking was about connection, about offering joy, about presence. His students admired him not only for his skill but for his resilience, for the way he had built a dream against the odds. Liang Chen, meanwhile, guided younger lawyers, reminding them that success was not just about prestige but about impact. He spoke of balance, of humanity, of the importance of choosing cases that mattered. His mentor admired him not only for his knowledge, but for his authenticity, for the way he had built a career that reflected his values. Together, they became pillars in their community, admired not only for their professional achievements, but for the way they lived their lives, with resilience, with authenticity, with love. Their families, too, became part of their legacy. Nieces and nephews grew into adulthood, inspired by their example. Parents, though frilier, found comfort in their presence. Siblings admired their resilience, their authenticity, their love. The path was not without obstacles, but it was becoming clearer, steadier, more certain. One evening, as they sat together on the balcony, the city lights shimmering beyond, Wei Lun spoke softly. "Do you ever think about the meaning of it all? Not just the cafe, not just law, but us." Liang Chen looked at him, his voice thoughtful. "I do. And I think the meaning is simple: love. We've built a life that's ordinary and extraordinary, filled with resilience, with persistence, with joy. That's the meaning." Wei Lun smiled, his eyes warm. "Then we've done well." The conversation lingered, carrying the weight of truth. They realized that their marriage was not just about vows. It was about growth, about resilience, about choosing each other again and again. As the years continued, they began to reflect more deeply on legacy. They considered writing a book together, sharing their story, their philosophy, their journey. They thought about creating a foundation that combined law and food to support their community. The specifics were uncertain, but the vision was clear: A life built not just on ambition but on joy, on presence, on love. Together, they built a life that was both ordinary and extraordinary. Ordinary in its routines, coffee, pastries, walks, conversations. Extraordinary in its resilience, its persistence, its love. And though aging continued, bringing with it aches, exhaustion, and change, they knew one thing for certain. They were in this together, step by step, moment by moment, forever.